Will Buffett make Alphabet Berkshire's largest holding? I think Warren Buffett accidentally revealed what could become Berkshire Hathaway's next largest investment, and I don't think many people noticed. Apple is still Berkshire's largest position by a wide margin, but after listening carefully to one interview Buffett gave with Becky Quick, I think he revealed exactly why he bought Alphabet. And if I'm right, it could explain where Berkshire is headed next. Today, Apple remains Berkshire's largest equity investment at roughly $60 billion. At its peak, Berkshire's stake was worth around $170 billion. Alphabet is already one of Berkshire's largest holdings at approximately $31 billion. So for Alphabet to overtake Apple, Buffett would have to continue building the position over time. The question is, would he? I think the answer begins with one short exchange between Becky Quick and Warren Buffett. As you watch this clip, pay close attention to one simple question. Who is Buffett talking about?
So when they were asset light, you didn't like them, and the markets loved them. Now that they
I made
are
a mistake.
spending heavily on capex, a lot of shareholders don't like them as much because
I
they
think
don't.
they're more likely to be a winner based on the record than probably 90% or 95% of what gets merchandised through Wall Street.
Most people focused on Buffett admitting he made a mistake by not buying Alphabet years earlier, but that wasn't what caught my attention. It was one simple word, they. Buffett said they're more likely to be winners based on their record. My question is, who exactly is they? Is Buffett talking about Alphabet the corporation? Or is he talking about Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the owners who have been allocating Alphabet's capital for more than 2 decades? I think the answer to that question changes how you should think about this entire investment. Buffett has never shied away from capital-intensive businesses. Berkshire has committed enormous sums to railroads, utilities, and energy infrastructure businesses that require constant reinvestment. So I don't think Buffett suddenly fell in love with Alphabet simply because it's spending hundreds of billions of dollars on AI. If my thesis is correct, that Buffett's biggest investment decisions are ultimately driven by who he trusts to allocate capital, then we should see the same pattern when the conversation turns to Berkshire's largest holding. And that's exactly where Becky Quick takes the interview next. She asks Buffett about Apple, specifically the transition from Tim Cook to John Ternus. Listen carefully to Buffett's answer because it's surprisingly revealing.
Let's talk about your largest position, Apple. You told us that you were thrilled with everything that Tim Cook had done. I don't know how well you know John Ternus at this point or what you think of the company's doing. You still have a lot of faith in Apple?
Well, there was no move they could make that would replace Tim that I would have liked.
This exchange reinforces something Buffett has believed for decades. He doesn't just invest in businesses, he invests in people. Specifically, he invests in people he trusts to allocate capital. That's exactly why his answer immediately turns to Tim Cook. Tim Cook became CEO in 2011, but Berkshire didn't begin buying Apple until 2016. Buffett waited years to watch Cook's judgment before committing billions of dollars. And Buffett has often said that operating a business and allocating capital are two very different skills. As he once put it, it's like getting to Carnegie Hall playing the violin, and then you walk out on stage and they hand you a piano. Buffett knew Tim Cook's capital allocation record. He'd been watching it for years. John Ternus may prove to be just as exceptional, but today, Buffett simply doesn't have that same history to evaluate. Now compare that to Alphabet. Larry Page and Sergey Brin have spent more than 2 decades building one of the greatest businesses in history. Buffett isn't evaluating a new management team. He's evaluating a capital allocation record that's been on display for over 20 years. If Buffett has developed that level of trust in Alphabet's leadership, then the next question is obvious. What would Charlie Munger say? Charlie Munger gave us what I think is the answer years ago. Listen carefully to what he says.
How did you think about the Apple investment, and what gave you the conviction to be so big?
Whatever he's learned is that everybody needs some significant participation in the 12 companies that do better than everybody else. And you need 2 or 3 of them at least. And if you have that mindset, Apple was a logical candidate.
Think about Charlie's comments in context of Berkshire today. Berkshire is sitting on an enormous amount of capital. At its size, finding a good business isn't enough anymore. Buffett needs investments capable of absorbing tens of billions of dollars and still being large enough to materially move the needle for Berkshire. And right now, it's difficult to talk about the next generation of extraordinary businesses without talking about artificial intelligence. AI may be the largest capital investment cycle of our lifetime. And Alphabet is one of the few companies on earth with the scale, cash flow, infrastructure, data, and technical talent to invest hundreds of billions of dollars into. Now, there's a very good reason this prediction could be wrong. Apple is still an extraordinary business. Berkshire's position is already enormous, and Buffett has never felt the need to constantly reshuffle his portfolio just because a new opportunity comes along. But there's one important difference between Apple and Alphabet today. Apple is certainly investing in artificial intelligence, but it isn't deploying the capital on the same scale as Alphabet or other hyperscalers. Alphabet is committing hundreds of billions of dollars to AI infrastructure, chips, models, and data centers, while Apple remains primarily focused on integrating AI into its existing ecosystem. If Buffett believes AI will define the next decade of business, Berkshire may eventually want greater exposure to the companies making the largest and most consequential capital investments in that transformation. Before I go any further, I should disclose one obvious bias. Alphabet is the largest position in the Inside Ownership 100, so I clearly have a vested interest in seeing the company succeed. That doesn't change the argument I'm making, but it does mean you should know where I'm coming from. With that disclosure out of the way, here's why I still think Buffett could keep buying. Of course, moving Alphabet ahead of Apple would still require tens of billions of dollars of additional purchases. But here's why I still think it's possible. Charlie's principle is that you need significant participation in a few of the companies that ultimately do better than everyone else. Berkshire has a problem if it doesn't have meaningful exposure to the companies that win the AI era. And Alphabet may be Buffett's answer. It's already a business Berkshire can deploy tens of billions of dollars into. It has an extraordinary historical record. Its founders still have enormous influence and ownership, and now it's participating in one of the largest technological and capital allocation opportunities in history. That's why I don't think $31 billion necessarily represents the end of Berkshire's Alphabet investment. It could be the beginning.